Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Definitely. Always up for a good discussion.
So, you know, we ask you to send us stuff that sparked your thinking, right?
Yeah.
And this one, well, this one kind of knocked me back a bit.
Oh, intense.
Pretty intense, yeah. You send us this excerpt, it's called Pasted Text. And well, it's arguing that Black Americans, they need to rethink how they see the Democratic Party. Whole thing's like a call to action almost.
Hmm. Interesting. I mean, that's a pretty big statement right there.
It is, right. It really throws down the gauntlet.
So what's the main thrust of it? What's the author saying?
Well, they're saying, like, straight up, that Democrats, they've taken black voters for granted for, like, forever, making all these promises every election, but not really delivering when it comes to making things better.
Yeah, I've heard that sentiment before. It's like there's this feeling of being let down, like promises haven't been kept.
Exactly. And there's this phrase the author uses, it really stuck with me. It's cycle of mediocrity. What do you think they're getting at with that?
That's interesting. Cycle of mediocrity. I think they're talking about like this idea of settling, right? If you always vote for the same party no matter what, even if things aren't really improving, then you're kind of stuck in this loop that doesn't actually benefit you.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, accepting okay when you deserve amazing. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Aim higher, right. Don't just settle for the status quo.
There's this one part, it's like an analogy, right? They compare this whole situation to like a guy quitting his job just because, something else seems a bit easier in the moment.
Ah, okay, I see where you're going with this.
It's like, are they saying black voters are giving up on themselves? Or is that reading too much into it?
That's a tough one. I don't think it's about giving up. I think it's more like a provocation, you know? It's
Yeah.
meant to make you question assumptions. Like, what if this loyalty to one party isn't actually leading to the progress we want to see?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's more about being strategic, not just blindly following the party line.
Exactly. It's about being critical, thinking for yourself, and really pushing for meaningful change.
And they definitely don't shy away from strong language,
Mm.
to make their point. There are phrases like uh, backbone of America and then fighting for the bare minimum. You feel that frustration, that sense of betrayal almost.
Oh, absolutely. The author is using language very deliberately here. They're trying to connect with Black Americans who feel like, hey, we've contributed so much, we've sacrificed so much, but are we getting that same level of respect and support in return? It's a valid question.
And to back that up, they go through a bunch of historical examples, right? Like
Yeah.
they remind us about the civil rights movement and how, Black Americans were right there on the front lines.
Right. Absolutely crucial to the movement's success. You can't talk about civil rights without acknowledging that.
Exactly. But then they point out, like, hey, even after all that, look at the disparities, the injustices that
Yeah.
still exist.
Right.
It's like things haven't really changed enough.
Yeah, that's a powerful point. And it feeds into this whole idea that, other groups have benefited from the struggles and achievements of Black Americans without necessarily facing the same systemic barriers.
Right. And they even get into specifics like current events. They bring up the Asian hate crime bill, Japanese reparations, even the aid going to Ukraine and, support for immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
They use all that as like proof that Democrats are prioritizing other groups over Black Americans.
It's a bold strategy, right? They're trying to make people think about, like, where do my needs actually fall on the priority list of the party? Who are they really working for?
Yeah, it's making you question things, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And then there's the ending. It's like, save the most explosive stuff for last. They say, they are not like us. More importantly, they don't like us.
Yeah.
Most importantly, they owe you us. It's pretty intense.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a statement.
So who's they? And what do you make of all that?
They, it seems to be this general, like, the establishment, the people in power. But I think in this context, it's specifically aimed at the Democratic Party leadership,
Hmm.
the ones they feel have failed the Black community. It's strong language, meant to get attention.
Shake things up a bit.
Exactly. Wake people up, get them talking, and maybe inspire them to take action.
So if I'm putting all the pieces together here,
Right.
this is basically a call for Black Americans to like step back and reassess, figure out if their political allegiances are really serving their best interests, and then fight for what they deserve.
That's a good summary, yeah. The author's asking, are you getting what you deserve? And if not, what are you going to do about it?
Wow. A lot to think about there. A latte. So what do you think? What's the one thing our listeners should really walk away with from this deep dive?
For me, it's that It's not enough to just vote,
Yeah.
right? It's about really understanding the issues, advocating for your needs, and holding the people in power accountable. And that goes for any parter, not just Democrats.
That's such a great point. It's about being an active participant, not just a spectator.
Exactly. Your voice matters. Make it heard.
This has been a really, I don't know, like eye-opening deep dive. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for, walking us through it all.
Anytime. Always happy to chat about these things. It's important to have these conversations.
Absolutely. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for sending us this piece. It's definitely something to think about, right? It's a conversation starter, sure. Hopefully it gets everyone thinking more about the political landscape and, how it affects their lives. So keep those submissions coming, and we'll be back soon with another deep dive.